Season 7, AI and Government. Episode 2, Why AI Regulation Always Comes Late. One. Introduction, the pattern that never changes. A new technology spreads. It transforms society. It creates harm. Then regulation arrives. Usually years later. Sometimes decades later. By the time rules are written, the technology is already embedded. Companies have built business models around it. Governments rely on it. People have adapted. And the most powerful actors have already shaped the playing field. This is not unique to AI. But AI makes the pattern more dangerous. Because AI is not one product. It is an infrastructure that can govern decisions. And when AI spreads faster than regulation, society becomes an experiment without consent. So why does AI regulation always come late? Is it incompetence? Is it corruption? Is it the complexity of technology? The real answer is structural. Regulation comes late because the incentives of innovation, politics, and power make it late. This episode explains that structure. 2. The first reason, technology moves faster than law. Laws move slowly. They require debate, consensus, drafting, committees, public consultation, enforcement planning, court interpretation. AI moves fast. Models can change overnight. Software updates can shift behavior instantly. Companies can deploy new systems without public notice. Even if lawmakers wanted to regulate quickly, they face a basic mismatch in speed. The technology iterates in weeks. The law iterates in years. That gap guarantees delay. 3. The second reason, people do not understand what is new yet. Regulation often requires understanding harms. But harms are not always obvious at first. Early adopters focus on benefits, efficiency, convenience, profit. The harms appear later. Bias in automated decisions, surveillance expansion, work intensification, misinformation floods, cultural fragmentation, safety failures. At the beginning, AI feels like a tool. It takes time to see it as a governance system. By the time society understands what AI is really doing, it is already widespread. Regulation arrives after understanding. Understanding arrives after deployment. That delay is built in. 4. The third reason, AI is invisible when it works. Many AI systems do not announce themselves. They run quietly in the background. A credit risk model. A welfare fraud flag. A hiring filter. A ranking system. A surveillance analytics platform. When AI works smoothly, people do not notice. They only notice when something goes wrong. A false denial. A mistaken arrest. A suppressed account. A sudden loss of reach. But even then, they may not know AI was involved. If citizens cannot see the system, political pressure is weak. Weak pressure means slow regulation. Visibility drives regulation. Invisibility delays it. AI is often invisible by design. 5. The fourth reason, regulation requires a crisis. Most major regulations follow crises. Financial regulation follows crashes. Food safety regulation follows scandals. Workplace safety regulation follows disasters. Privacy regulation often follows major breaches and public outrage. AI regulation is similar. Without a crisis, lawmakers struggle to prioritize. Because regulation has costs. It can slow business. It can create compliance burdens. It can provoke lobbying resistance. So politicians often wait until a harm becomes visible enough to justify action. But waiting means harm becomes entrenched. This is why regulation arrives late. It is crisis-driven. 6. The fifth reason, powerful actors benefit from no rules. The actors deploying AI often benefit from weak regulation. Tech firms gain profit. Employers gain control. Platforms gain attention. Governments gain surveillance capacity. When powerful actors benefit, they resist constraints. They lobby. They frame regulation as anti-innovation. They emphasize economic competition. They propose voluntary guidelines instead of enforceable rules. They claim self-regulation is enough. This slows binding regulation. The people harmed often lack comparable power. So the timeline favors those with resources. Regulation arrives late because power prefers it late. 7. The sixth reason, lawmakers face the innovation blackmail. A common political argument appears in every technological shift. If we regulate, we will fall behind. Other countries will innovate faster. Our companies will lose. Jobs will disappear. This is innovation blackmail. It pressures governments to delay regulation. Even if harms are known, leaders fear being blamed for slowing growth. AI intensifies this argument because AI is framed as strategic national power. Economic advantage. Military advantage. Geopolitical competition. When AI is treated as a race, regulation is framed as weakness. So regulation becomes politically risky. That pushes it later. 8. The seventh reason, AI is a moving target. What exactly are you regulating? A model? A dataset? A use case? A company? A deployment context? AI is not one thing. It is a set of methods that can be used anywhere. That makes regulation harder. Rules written for one model type may become outdated. Rules written for one use may not cover another. Also, AI systems evolve. New model architectures. New training methods. New data sources. New integration into products. A moving target creates uncertainty. Lawmakers hesitate to regulate what they do not want to misdefine. So they delay. They wait for clarity. But clarity arrives after adoption. 9. The eighth reason, defining harm is political. AI harms are not always technical. They are social. What counts as unfair? What counts as discrimination? What counts as unacceptable surveillance? What counts as free speech harm? These are contested questions. Different groups have different values. Companies want flexibility. Civil society wants protection. Governments want security tools. Workers want dignity. Consumers want convenience. Because harms are contested, regulation becomes slow. AI forces society to confront value conflicts. Value conflicts take time. 10. The ninth reason, enforcement is harder than writing rules. Even if lawmakers agree on rules, enforcement is difficult. AI systems can be opaque. Companies claim trade secrets. Models are complex. Auditing requires expertise. Agencies may not have resources. If enforcement is weak, regulation becomes symbolic. Lawmakers hesitate to create rules they cannot enforce. They delay until institutions are ready. But building enforcement capacity also takes time. So regulation comes late not only because of politics, but because enforcement infrastructure is slow. 11. The 10th reason, AI is often regulated indirectly. Because direct AI regulation is hard, governments regulate around it. Privacy laws, consumer protection laws, anti-discrimination laws, employment laws, financial regulations. These existing frameworks can apply to AI. But they were not designed for AI. They may not address inference. They may not address automated decision-making. They may not address feedback loops. They may not address black box models. So indirect regulation can leave gaps. Governments rely on older rules while AI expands. Then they realize the gaps. Then they build new rules. That sequence is slow. 12. The 11th reason, soft law replaces hard law. Another reason AI regulation comes late is that governments often start with soft law. Guidelines, ethics frameworks, voluntary principles, industry standards. These are easier to adopt. They avoid conflict. They appear responsive. But they often lack enforcement. Companies can comply on paper while continuing harmful practices. Soft law can delay hard law. It creates the feeling that something is being done, while real constraints remain absent. This buys time for adoption. And once adoption is widespread, reversing it becomes harder. So soft law can function as a delay mechanism. 13. The 12th reason, regulation arrives after path dependence. Path dependence means once a system is embedded, changing it is expensive. Companies build workflows around AI. Governments build programs around AI. People learn to live with AI systems. The cost of change rises over time. When regulation arrives late, it often arrives into a world already locked in. So regulation becomes weaker. It focuses on small improvements rather than structural constraints. This is why late regulation often feels disappointing. It is shaped by the reality that AI is already everywhere. Late regulation becomes adjustment, not prevention. 14. Why AI is particularly hard to regulate compared to other tech. AI is not just a device. It is a decision system. It can influence hiring, credit, policing, healthcare, education, media, military. Governments already struggle to regulate each domain separately. AI crosses them all. It creates a general capacity. Prediction and classification. That means AI regulation must intersect with many industries and agencies. Coordination becomes difficult. Also, the harms are often probabilistic, not clear cause and effect. A model shifts outcomes gradually. A ranking system shapes culture subtly. This makes harm harder to prove, harder to litigate, harder to regulate. 15. The faster than democracy problem. Democracy is slow by design. Deliberation, checks and balances, public input, judicial review. These protect against tyranny. But they also slow response. AI deployment is fast, especially by private companies. So a tension emerges. AI can transform society faster than democratic processes can respond. This creates a governance gap. In the gap, private actors effectively govern through technology. Regulation arrives late because democracy is not built for rapid technological governance challenges. This is not an argument against democracy. It is a warning that democracy must adapt. 16. The role of lobbying and regulatory capture. Powerful industries influence regulation. They fund lobbying. They shape narratives. They provide expert advice. They create revolving doors between government and industry. Even when capture is not complete, influence is strong. Companies argue for flexible standards. They argue for self-regulation. They argue for narrow definitions of harm. They argue for exemptions. This shapes the final rules. It also slows the process. Because compromises take time. And because industry pressure can make lawmakers hesitant. 17. Why international coordination slows everything. AI is global. Data flows cross borders. Models are trained globally. Platforms operate across countries. If one nation regulates strictly, companies may shift operations. Or consumers may access services from elsewhere. So governments often seek coordination. But international coordination is slow. Different legal systems. Different values. Different political interests. Different economic strategies. Coordination delays action. Yet acting alone feels risky. So regulation is delayed. 18. What late regulation looks like in practice. When regulation comes late, it often focuses on transparency labels, disclosure requirements, reporting obligations, audit frameworks, risk classification categories. These can help, but they rarely change business models. They rarely limit surveillance incentives. They rarely redistribute power. They often become compliance checklists. The deeper structure remains. This is the tragedy of late regulation. It manages symptoms. It rarely prevents the core. 19. How to make regulation less late. If society wants faster response, it needs institutional changes. Specialized AI oversight agencies with technical expertise. Adaptive regulation that can update quickly. Mandatory impact assessments before deployment in high-stakes domains. Strong whistleblower protections. Public transparency about procurement and government AI usage. Independent audits with real enforcement. Restrictions on the highest risk uses regardless of innovation pressure. Clear accountability for harms caused by automated decisions. The key is shifting from reactive to preventive governance. But prevention requires political will. 20. Core takeaway: AI regulation comes late because law is slow, harms are initially invisible, crises drive action, powerful actors benefit from delay, AI is a moving target, enforcement is difficult, and geopolitical competition frames regulation as weakness. Late regulation often becomes adjustment rather than prevention. The most important point is this. When AI spreads faster than regulation, the world is shaped by the incentives of those deploying AI, not by democratic choice. If society wants AI governed in the public interest, regulation must become faster, stronger, and more accountable. If this episode helped you understand why AI regulation always comes late, like this video so more people can see it. Share it with someone who thinks lawmakers just do not care. And subscribe to Uncovering Facts for deep, hype-free explanations of technology, power, and the systems shaping modern life. Next episode: can democracies survive algorithmic power?